Thanks for tuning into the 6-3 podcast. I'm your host, Joel, with my co-host, Ben. Sorry if my words get a little foggy today, and perhaps Ben's in advance. I'm a recovering COVID haver per HIPAA, and Ben is. I'm leaking Ben's medical information as well right now.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. We're kind of both still in a little bit of a fog. So if Ben says some dumb stuff, it's out of the ordinary. I know for him.
Just blame COVID.
Just blame COVID. So let's talk about the Michigan bowl game first. Obviously played Georgia in that one, and we knew that going into that game it was going to be a battle. Didn't think we weren't expecting a blowout. I don't think by any means. But Georgia's game plan was exactly what they needed to do to counter Michigan's strengths, and it was a great game plan, to be honest. What did you see from that game?
Yeah, I mean, from the Michigan standpoint, it's a disappointing end to a pretty incredible season. I was, looking at this sort of as icing on the cake, though, if anything were to happen beyond, Big Ten championship. Unfortunately, they put themselves in such a hole at the beginning of the game that, you're not going to really dig out of that against that team. Georgia was prepared for everything Michigan was going to do offensively. And, even when they started to sort of move the ball, I look at, first drive of the second half and, a little bit when McCarthy was able to spark him a little bit. They still turned the ball over. They were doing some uncharacteristic things where, I think they were just pressing because they hadn't been down like that all year. That's a good thing they hadn't been down like that all year. But it's just one of those things where better team won. Georgia was just better. I don't know. Looking at it, we probably should have. I know we didn't do a preview because of sickness mostly, but I was as we were getting closer to the game, I didn't think it would be a blowout just because I was confident in Michigan, but as we were getting closer to the game, I kind of thought it would go one of two ways. I thought Michigan would win a close game. If Michigan won, right, they would win a close game if they could keep it close, or Georgia would do what they did, just because I just didn't think it would go, Georgia a close win, or Michigan was never going to blow out that team. The talent difference is pretty stark. I think I saw a stat the other day where it was from the last, I think it's the last.
I saw it too. Let me see if I can pull it up from Twitter.
It's like 17% or something stupid, but it's like I think I retweeted it, but it's.
I liked it off your retweet.
Yeah. It might have been the last 4 recruiting cycles or something like that.
So so Georgia, 84 ESPN 300 commits, 13 5-stars, 60 inside the top 150. And to put those numbers into perspective, that means that between Alabama and Georgia, they've signed 12% of ESPN 300 recruits in 5 years, 34% of the 5-stars in the last 5 years, and 17% of the top 150 prospects. And it's between 2 FBS schools.
So they signed 17%, but it's actually probably higher because you have to factor in how many of those top 150 are already in the NFL, which they didn't do. And that's just 2 schools. So that's the difference right there. Michigan has, I think, so Tom Van Haren, this is who they signed. So
56 ESPN 300, 24 in the top 150.
Yeah. It's not even close. I mean, it's not even close. Now, some of those guys aren't even on the roster still either, right? So some of those guys are in the NFL. A couple of them is transferred, whatever, hurt, whatever. So there's a difference right there. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the name of the game. Yeah, it's how college football is right now. I think it is going to get better. I think some of this NIL
even
stuff.
With this transfer portal stuff.
Yep, some of this transfer portal stuff, some of this NIL stuff, I think it's going to help. But the only way, the blueprint right now to be able to hang with those teams is, and Ohio State's one of those teams too, in my opinion. They're not at quite that level, but they're pretty darn close. But the only way to hang with those teams is to kind of do what Michigan did this year, obviously, that, play their own style, and basically build your roster to beat Ohio State at the end of the year, which they had done. But then, Clemson is the blueprint. You have to have an all-world quarterback. LSU, same thing a few years ago. You have to have a quarterback that puts you over the top. And obviously Michigan didn't have that this year. Hopefully down the road they do. Maybe McCarthy's that guy. I think the potential is certainly there. But, I'm not really going to sit here and bash Cade McNamara. He had a terrible game, but I can't really do anything, sit here and be like, Michigan came in with just the worst game plan. I don't think it mattered that game. I really don't.
I got a little excited that first offensive play where Cade took off for 18 yards, and I was like, where did those feet come from?
Yeah.
And who was the announcer that game said that Cade was going to have to do that?
Yeah, he did.
Because it's something that they weren't going to expect. They have to throw off a whole new game plan.
Yep. So. It's just kind of one of those things where, you're watching that game and really after the first 3 or 4 drives, even after the first quarter, you're just like, this isn't up. You feel like the time I knew it was over, I think we were down 14-0, and they ran a swing pass to Blake Corum, and Nakobe Dean, who, mind you, pretty much any other middle linebacker one-on-one with Blake Corum, when he has to run, the linebacker has to run from the opposite side of the field to catch up with Blake Corum, is a win for Michigan, and mostly anybody. But Dean tackled him in the backfield, ran him down, and was probably faster than Blake Corum as your middle linebacker, which is just, at that point, I'm just like, this doesn't even that's not even a bad play call. That's just you can't, that's NFL stuff right there. So,
which is crazy that I'm still seeing, I know mock drafts mean nothing, but especially at this point, but Nakobe Dean is still projected in that, 28 to 38 range.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if he doesn't go top 20, that's a surprise after what he did in that game.
Yeah. He wrecked the game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Georgia's front completely obliterated Michigan's front for the most part. But Dean wrecked the game. I think, there were things that
we had some pretty dumb penalties, a lot of pre-snap penalties that were
pre-snap penalties were bad, put them behind the 8 ball early. The interception
that happens when you're exhausted, and that front 7 wore them down.
Yep. Yeah, it was just tough. And Georgia,
they countered, and you talk about how they countered, the defense countered up Michigan's offense. Georgia's offense countered Michigan's what usually is a lethal pass rush, and they got quick releases from Stetson Bennett. Stetson didn't even have to use his feet near as much as he usually does.
One time he maybe twice.
Yeah. I was very surprised how little he ran, but that's what they were doing with the quick release passes, the quick fade routes, whether they're flat routes, there's just different screens. They were just doing different things, and it was working.
Yeah. It was all 3-step drop, 1-step drop, just quick out of it. They were not going to get him. They did everything they could. They watched the Ohio State game. They did everything they could to make sure Aiden Hutchinson and or David Ojabo do not wreck the game. Right. So unfortunately, Michigan's actually does have a talent deficiency on the defensive end. They've got on the defensive side of the ball, they have 2 all-world defensive ends, and then
they have a good safety.
And then Dax Hill, and that's, then a bunch of just guys, right? Yeah. Who play good team defense, don't get me wrong, and do their job well. But against, when you've got 2 really good defensive ends, but when you're against a team that, everybody talks about Georgia's defense as being all world. Georgia's offense was top 5 in the country all year. It's not like this team is just like Wisconsin on offense. Everybody's like, oh, they're just Wisconsin with good athletes. No,
they're White and good. James Cook.
Yeah, they've got some good, really 2 good tailbacks.
When he's healthy,
massive. Bennett. Don't get me wrong; he probably played the game of his life. He was dropping some stuff in there that he really hadn't, but he was confident. He was confident in the game plan. He didn't have to do, other than some of the downfield shots that he had to open guys for the most part. He didn't have to do anything crazy. He was just accurate. He just got the ball out of his hand and got out of the way. So.
And then when George Pickens, even thinking about him, when he's healthy, he's obviously coming off an ACL injury, but he's going to be a good NFL wide receiver.
Yep. They've got some dudes. They got 5 stars on that side. obviously everybody's like, oh, their quarterback's a walk-on. Yeah, he's a walk-on, but or former walk-on, but it doesn't matter. I mean, he's Cade McNamara. He's probably better than McNamara. He's a better athlete, certainly. So, if you've got athletes like crazy around you and a good offensive line and a good game plan, like that's what it looks like. And I think Michigan actually did adjust, but they adjusted probably a little bit too late, and the offense didn't give them enough of a chance to stay in the game until the defense could adjust. So, and that's the game, and puts a little bit of a damper on a really, really, really good season. It would have been nice to just like lose like a close game. Like that would, I mean,
Even if
I
it
don't
was
want
10 points, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been just like, okay, well, at least that was a fight.
It wasn't 38-0. I was very thankful for that.
It wasn't. I'm happy they scored a touchdown. To, you saw some good things. I mean, McCarthy came in and did some good things. Andrell Anthony had obviously a touchdown. Donovan Edwards looked like he belonged. Like those three looked like they belonged on the field against Georgia, which means something as freshmen.
Ron Moore played a lot.
Moore played a lot and played pretty well.
Yeah, Vincent Gray was really was a struggle in that game.
Yeah, he was bad. He might leave. We'll talk about that soon. But
I did not see this article, but I am excited to talk about this soon.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's just speculation on he might just go to a different school. But anyway, DJ Turner was good. You didn't really hear his name called, but I thought he was. That's a good thing if you're a corner. So yeah, Georgia did everything to play. To do. Basically did everything to not let Michigan do what they do well, right? And then Michigan had to adapt and weren't really able to, and that's just kind of been no one else was able to force Michigan to do that, right? This year, Michigan State sort of forced them to throw the ball more, but Michigan State also, I mean, why wouldn't you throw the ball in that Michigan State defense? They were terrible in the back end. So, Ohio State obviously did not force them to have to go downfield much. Nebraska didn't really. I'm just trying to think about their close games. Penn State, but that was just kind of a grind. I mean, that was Michigan's defense kept them in that game up until the end, and then
Eric Hall just put on the burners. Yeah,
right. So it's just kind of one of those things where we hadn't seen it happen, and I think there's probably only two teams that it would really happen against, and they're both playing for the national championship, and Michigan's probably the third best team in the country this year, and that's just where we're at right now. And you can't really hang your head on that. You can't really be sad about that or frustrated about that. It's a frustrating ending, but I think if you look back on this year, it's way better than anybody expected. Obviously, I think I don't know what I had him at. I thought I was a little more
9-3. I said
9-3. Yeah, but I think we had different wins maybe.
There was some people. I think you and I were kind of both in the same spot. I said either 9-3 or 8-4 in the preview. So,
and I would have taken that. I'll be completely honest. I said 9. I think I said 9-3, and sure, sweet, run away. Happily take it. And
we thought 9-3 would be amazing, bouncing back after last year. So,
right.
Does Michigan have the horses to be back in the next year or two?
I think next year's team has I think the offense.
We're losing edge rushers next year. That's the worst.
Yeah, so you're losing Hutchinson and Ojabo. They both declared. Ojabo declared yesterday. Hutchinson today. Obviously, you knew they were both gone. Yeah. And it sounds like Chris Hinton left as well. Yep. So we got to figure that one out. I'm not. The defense is going to have to be different. It's going to have to be structured differently, but they're going to be better in the back end, just with the way they've recruited. Dax Hill hasn't made a decision yet. He may come back. Word on the street, there's a chance at least, which would really help. And he could end up playing corner even.
I'd be shocked if you are if you're going to be like a top 35 pick.
I just think now that they can pay these guys something, I think it makes a difference to some of these guys. Yeah. And I think obviously he was all Big Ten, but I think depending on how they want to use him, he could be, if he's more of a deep safety where he's able to go and maybe make some more plays on the ball. I think that could be where he wants to play, or maybe play more in coverage on the outside. Because I could see him being that more in the NFL anyway, because he is a little bit of a tweener where he fits in college because he can be a box safety in college because he's a really good tackler and he's fast. And But I don't know if he's big enough to do that in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I still am leaning that I think he'll go, but
I do
to
too.
get back to your question, I mean, I think the offense should be better.
Assuming JJ McCarthy takes the reins.
I don't think it matters. I mean, you've got Donovan Edwards coming into his own. You're replacing Andrew Vistardis up front with a Remington finalist, the transfer in from Virginia. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. Yeah, we'll just go with that. Your receivers, you're getting Ronnie Bell back. He's coming back. Daylen Baldwin's leaving, but that doesn't matter. I mean, Andrell Anthony's coming along. You just recruited a bunch of good receivers. Roman Wilson was the only guy that seemingly was getting open in the bowl game. I mean, he was open multiple times that he just was missed, and he did have one catch. Blake Corum's back, Donovan Edwards. I do think McCarthy is going to be the quarterback. Now, this is something where it's going to be, you have to find a way to keep them both around, though, for this year. You just have to find a way to keep them both on the team, because you've just seen it too many times when you feel like you've got one good quarterback and then he goes down.
Some people really think Dan Villari is actually pretty good.
No, we don't want to see that. I'm just telling you right now. We don't want to see that. So you got to keep them both around. So, it wouldn't surprise me if Cade gets a lot of time, but, by the time this next season really, gets to a point where it's in full swing, I do think JJ McCarthy, you saw it. He just gives you the best chance. He's got a lot to work on too. Don't get me wrong. He does things where, it's like, he's got to improve that, but by all accounts, I mean, he's going to, right. And he just gives you so much more I wouldn't even say just with his feet. I don't care about his running, just with his passing, like his downfield ability is so much higher.
That's a gun
than Cade's. So, I don't know.
Well, I guess, from there we can kind of go to our bowl games and how our picks ended up panning out. Okay, it's back on. Good stuff.
That was weird.
You froze and I was like, okay, well, I don't know. I wasn't sure if you had stopped talking or not. And then I was like, all right, well, maybe we can go to how we did in the bowl picks and stuff. And
then it was gone.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, my closing point on that is that I think that the offense is going to be better. The defense is going to have to look a lot different. The offense is going to be different too. I think they need, the passing game. Again, I think JJ McCarthy is going to be the guy eventually. So I think they're going to lean more on the passing game, but I think their identity still needs to be behind the running game. I think their two best players are still going to be their two running backs. And their offensive line still, I would assume, I guess Stuber would probably be the only one that could go. I guess Ryan Hayes could, but
I was going to say Ryan Hayes is another guy. Keegan and Zinter will stay.
Yeah, I don't expect. So you're going to get your two guards back. You're probably going to get your two tackles back, and then you're replacing your center, who was good, but he was undersized. You saw he got smoked a couple of times.
Yeah, and he was always. I always felt like he was probably the weaker part of that line.
Yeah, he was smart, and he got better, and he was excellent at certain things this year. He was athletic. He can move for a center, but I think we're going to get an upgrade, which is crazy.
The fact that he was a Remington finalist as a sophomore, that says something.
Right. So, overall, I think, they can get back there. I mean, if you look at their schedule, it's not next year. It's not, they don't play anybody in the non-conference that you sit there and go, oh boy, that'll be a tough one at all.
Yeah, you got to go back to Ohio State. So that kind of stinks. But
yeah, so here's what I think will happen. I mean, they'll probably go into Ohio State with a chance to win, go to Big Ten championship in the college football playoff. I'm not going to sit there and pick that as a win though. Right now, Ohio State's really good. That's going to be a game where it's like, man, I don't know every year, but you know what? That's where they should be. They should be at least in that position every single year with how they recruit and who's on their team and who their coach is. That should be the position they're in every year. Yes, your down year should be like your 9-3 where, maybe you had to play a freshman quarterback or your quarterback got hurt or, you lost a bunch of really close games or something like that. That should be your down year, not your every year level. So
there's obviously more questions that are coming up too, and like Harbaugh going back to the NFL, and those come up every year. They really do, but it seems like they're a little more talky about it this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he took the pay cut, so obviously he's going to be doing, I don't think he cares about the money. I think what he more cares about, he just wants a commitment for his assistants. And he wants a commitment to, hey, there's a changing landscape in college football, not right now with the portal and this NIL stuff and everything like that. So I want a commitment from the university that we're going to compete in this, and we're going to, because they're not going to, I mean, they can't fall behind on that. If they fall behind on that, then they're going to be screwed in 2 or 3 years when everybody else is beating them to the punch on that. So if you can get that commitment, I'm not really worried about him leaving. I would expect them to come up with a pretty nice new contract soon, would be my guess. So, yes, but the NFL, I guarantee you that the most of the interest is coming from the NFL side. I'm sure did the Bears say Nagy's not coming
Bears
back?
are one, and then the Raiders are another team that's coming up.
So. Yeah, he played for both. He coached for the Raiders. That was his first coaching spot, and he played for the Bears. So those are 2 spots that make sense. Mm-hmm. But I think he loves it where he is. He said it himself. But I think
is he gonna say I hate it here? Like that's the other thing.
Well, no, but you could tell. Like this year, he really enjoyed it, and he's kept saying the whole time, even after they lost, like, hey, this feels like the beginning. This feels like, the beginning of it all. This is what we've been trying to get to the point where we can do this consistently. So, I think he feels like while they accomplished a lot of the stuff that he set out to do, he feels like they can even take it to the next level. So I think he'll be sticking around. And I think the problem is you see it now with like some of these coaches, like James Franklin, in my opinion, he's just an ass clown of a coach, and he's getting paid $10 million a year. Like what? Like, and then Mel Tucker, who, yes, he is 2-0 against Harbaugh in Michigan. But he's a 500 head coach in his career. I think he's probably better than that. Don't get me wrong. I do think he's a good coach, but like $9.5 million, like, are you kidding me? Like, so if you're Harbaugh, I don't think he cares about money at all. I don't think that's really even a motivating factor for him. But at the same time, it's like, look, I just won the Big Ten and I went to the playoff. Like, and these clowns are getting this much money. So, I at least better be close.
Yeah.
Or I'll take less and then make sure my assistants are paid for and make sure we have all this NIL stuff figured out. So that's what I would guess.
So with the bowl picks, after yesterday's Kansas State win over LSU, we had both picked LSU on that one.
Yeah.
You are 27-14 and I am 23-18. So you got a 4-game lead on me, and depending on how this last national championship pick goes, it'll be either 3 or 5 wins or 4 still.
Who did I pick? Bama?
We haven't picked a national championship game yet.
That's right. We didn't know who was going to be in it. That's right.
So we're picking that tonight on live. I did want to go over, while we're still focusing on Michigan, some of the players that have been reported to go to the NFL. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson's going. Daylen Baldwin is going to the NFL. We kind of know where Aiden Hutchinson's going to land? Probably a top 2 pick, but Daylen Baldwin, do you think he gets drafted?
He put up some really good tape. At times, even this year for Michigan, he had some games where he was pretty good. Nebraska. I
think he had JJ McCarthy's first.
Yeah, he had a couple McCarthy touchdowns on the D. He's a good deep ball guy, good blocker. No, I do not think he gets drafted though. He was hurt a lot of the year too, but he put up some really good tape with Jackson State and Deion Sanders too, so that'll factor in. Mm-hmm. But no, I don't think he does. I wouldn't be surprised to see him catch on somewhere though.
Well, the thing is, he was, I think, Michigan's. According to the final snap counts this year, Cornelius Johnson was first. Then you had Mike Sainer still. Then you had Roman Wilson. Then you had Andrew Anthony. Then you had Daylen Baldwin. So he was their 5th receiver, and then he was AJ Henning was 6th.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, he didn't see the field very much. He had just over 250 snaps out of about 1,003 total offensive snaps on the year. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I'd be surprised. I was kind of shocked to see him going, but I know obviously he transferred to Michigan.
He's also a fifth-year senior. He's,
Yeah.
he's probably not really.
It's either this or retire, and he's probably aware of it.
Right. I mean, he probably could have came back, but at the same time, he's looking at it. Where are the snaps next year? Ronnie Bell's coming back. Andrew Anthony's only going to get better. Roman Wilson's only going to get better. Henning.
Sanders goes back. Yeah, all those guys.
Back. They just recruited like 4 very good receivers. Like he probably wasn't getting a whole lot of snaps next year. Cornelius Johnson's coming back. He's probably not going to play a lot next year. So you might as well just go give it a shot, try to catch on to the practice squad and see what happens. So
with Hinton's also another guy that was kind of like could go either way. Some people thought he'd come back for another year. And do you think he gets drafted? I would say probably 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, I mean, apparently he's hearing from people. He's top 3 round pick. I don't know where they're getting that. I mean, I'm gonna guess he'll test well. His dad, he's got the genes. His dad was an incredible player as an offensive lineman. I don't know where he's hearing that. I think he'll get drafted. I mean, highest I could see is like a 4th round guy if he tests crazy at the combine. I get why he went. I think he already graduated. His dad played in the NFL, obviously, like I said. And he was probably just ready. But, from a standpoint physically, I don't think he's going to do any massive growing or anything. But at the same time, yeah, 4th round is my high for him. But I think he will be in the 4th to 6th round range. Any higher, and then, obviously, then he tests crazy. He might test crazy well. I don't know. I haven't really seen him.
I mean, there have been undrafted Michigan defensive tackles that that going undrafted are still in the NFL 4 years later, named Brian Monet. Right. So still played with the Seahawks in the Lions game last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's good. So I think he is a draftable player for sure. I don't think he goes undrafted unless he gets hurt or something. So
David Ojabo, where does he land in the 1st or 2nd round?
I think he's a 1st round pick. He's probably in the 20 to 30 range, 20 being the high. I mean, I haven't, obviously once draft order comes out, I'd probably figure it out better, but yeah, I mean, his problem is he wasn't really an every down player, even with Michigan. He's a pass rush specialist, but at the same time, he did get better with his run defense, with his run stopping. So, and he's really just raw still, if you think about it. I mean, he's already got 3 or 4 he's got obviously crazy good speed and bend around the edge, and he's got 3 or 4 real good, counter moves to that too. And he covered a little bit, so if you want him as a 3-4 outside linebacker, kind of like the Packers did with Rashawn Gary for a little while, could do that. So yeah, I think he gets drafted in the top, the 20 to, I would say probably top 25 draft pick from my guess.
I would probably say right around that spot. I think he's mid to late 20s. So
yeah.
I think those are the only ones that have been released as.
Yeah, other than Hutchinson, which we think he's number 1 or 2. So
yeah, there's been some transfer outs, and obviously some of those guys are understandable because they didn't play a single snap this year. Darian Green-Warren didn't play a snap this year. Andre Seldon had 1 snap. George Johnson was mainly special teams, and I still think had under 50 snaps on the year. So I think the biggest one would be Anthony Solomon, but obviously he didn't fit in he was a Don Brown backup Viper that was especially supposed to take over that.
And he's going to Arizona, who Don Brown was their defense coordinator last year, so that makes sense. Obviously he's moving on, Brown is, but they'll probably play a similar defense next year anyway. So nothing earth-shattering there as far as transfers. I mean, I think
there'll be more. I still think there's gonna be more.
Oh, there's definitely gonna be more. I think the scholarship count right now is at like 99 amount of players. If everybody now came back, which you need to be at 85. So there'll be more, there'll be a couple, there'll be some attrition. It's normal. I mean, it's not, but there's nothing sitting there you're going, oh man, that's a big loss. I mean, the only concern is, okay, that's 3 corners, right? That's 3 DBs. So, you're feeling thin there, but they've recruited over that. They recruited like 7 DBs. So yeah, they'll be freshmen, but they're probably all better than those guys. So good for those guys. Looks like Taylor Upshaw said he's coming back, which is good.
I did see that too. And Eric All say something
Eric
too?
All said he's coming back as well. So that's the big one, really.
Yeah.
Because I do think he is a future NFL guy. But he kind of made some of their offense go this past year. I mean, he was great at times. So I think that's a huge one for sure. So nothing necessarily surprising. The Dax Hill thing will be interesting. That's the big decision I guess you're waiting on. But I think the longer it takes for him not to choose, to not pick the NFL is a good thing in Michigan's mind, because a lot of these players are making these decisions, this week. So
there's some guys that kind of jump out at me that Brad Hawkins is going to the draft. Josh Ross is going to go to the draft because they're 5th-year seniors.
So Hawkins actually can't come back. He actually used a COVID year this year. So he's gone. Ross can. I'm going to assume he's gone, but apparently he's like thinking about it. Wow. I just don't. Here's the like. If you're sitting here and you're like, man, Josh Ross, like, he had a great year, but I just don't see how much better he's gonna get. Like he's actually not that good. Like he's probably one of the weaker parts of their defense, but he's the only reason he's good is because he's so old and he just knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, part of me is like, man, that would be great to have back because you got a bunch of young linebackers that you're going to have. But at the same time, it's like, man, eventually you got to move on. You know what I mean?
Finally be a 5th or 6th round draft pick.
Yeah. I think he's got a chance somewhere. I mean, he could play in the NFL.
So I want to hear what you thought about, or I didn't see anything on Vincent Gray. What was that about Vincent Gray?
Talks that he might be looking elsewhere, possibly looking for the draft, which, okay.
You want your final showing to be that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I think he certainly had a way better year this year. So he got better, no doubt. Mm-hmm. And he's got a body type that the NFL likes. He's tall. He's probably 6'3", but yeah, I mean, if he goes, he won't get drafted. But if you're Michigan, I think the reason he'd be looking to go is, okay, how much better am I going to get?
Lavert Hill was a 7th round pick, and I don't think he's better than Lavert Hill was.
No, he's bigger than Lavert Hill though.
Yeah, it's true.
So, how much better am I going to get? And then am I even going to play next year? Because, Will Johnson's coming in. He's a 5-star corner. You got a couple other corners that are coming in that might be as good as Vincent Gray. You got, Jamon Green's coming back probably.
And German Green.
Yeah, DJ Turner is already the best corner on the team. He's already better. He already overtook the #1 corner spot. So how are you even going to play next year? I don't know. So he might be looking at it that way. Wouldn't be surprised to see him back, but I think he might be gone. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of guys otherwise. We talked about a couple of the linemen.
Yeah, Vistardis, Stuber, Filiaga is a grad student.
Yep.
So, and Filiaga might. I mean, the fact that he was we talked about how the offensive line was the strength on that team, and Filiaga was always like the next guy.
Yeah, he was a 6th guy there. I just think he's been around so long. It's like, hey, if you want to test the NFL waters, now it's time to go. Give it a shot at this point because, again, you're not going to start next year. Keegan's already cemented himself in there. He already did this year. What more are you going to do?
I actually think Donovan Jeter has more potential in the NFL than Chris Hinton.
I think Hinton gets a better chance. I mean, I think.
Well, so Hinton's more athletic, like you said. He's probably going to test well, but it's going to depend on the defense, I guess. Because to me, Jeter's kind of like Brian Monet made it. Jeter can.
Well, I think Jeter could play. I mean, I don't know. But again, like, you just never know. These late round pick or undrafted free agent defensive linemen, offensive linemen, kind of the same way too. You never really know. So I don't know.
Where does Hassan Haskins get drafted?
4th round, 5th round.
Oh, okay.
6 maybe. I mean, he's not gonna blaze at the combine. Well, I don't think he's gonna necessarily be slow. He's not gonna blaze at the combine. He's and running back is just not, unless you're Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, you're not going to get drafted. Even if you had some crazy year, which he did. I mean, he, ran for 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards, 20 touchdowns. That's a, that's a dark horse Heisman level season in some years, right?
Yeah.
But, he's not. He honestly is probably, he's got a chance, I think, in the league. Because I think he can be a guy that can just be a guy that will churn out yards. And
I think he can be a good. I think his ceiling's a pretty good number 2, Jamal Williams type of guy.
Yeah, that is 100% how I look at him. A guy that's like, and then maybe on a certain team, if he's a hot hand at certain times, like he can be a number 1 back for certain games or a season or something, depending on what's going on. That's his ceiling. But I think he catches on in the league, and I do think he will get drafted. Running back's just not valued the same way. I think teams love.
I don't think it should. I think you're learning, especially this year with the COVID year, players getting COVID, next guy up, and still seems like if they have a good offensive line, they're getting yards.
Yeah, I mean, put him behind the Lions' offensive line, he'd probably get yards. I'll be completely honest. Put him behind some, the Eagles' offensive line, he'd definitely get yards now.
Both offensive line, he'd get yards. I mean,
yeah. So I think he is an NFL back. I just don't know. I mean, where do you see him? Late?
I say late 4th, early 5th, actually. But that's I don't. Yeah, the difference is going to be if he's going to test well. Because if he doesn't test well,
I still think he's going to run like crazy. But I do think he's going to test. Like his bench is probably going to be really high. Like he's strong. He's a big, strong guy. But I still think he's not going to blaze. The 40.
The agility or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be fine. I still think he's just not going to stand out there. And the only way you really move up boards as a running back is if, you're Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, where you can be the pass catcher to Alvin Kamara. Those
you run a 4-4 or
you run a 4-4, 4-3, right? And even then, but tailback is just not something, the Barkleys and the Kamaras and I don't even know, Kamara might have been a 2nd round pick, but the Barkleys, the Kamaras, the McCaffrey's probably the best example. Like those don't exist. And even then, like you see those guys are just hurt. They've been hurt the last 2 or 3 years.
So. And NFL running back skills don't always Bryce Love, for example, one of those really good college running back at Stanford and didn't do anything. So
Yep. Doesn't always work out. But I think his body is big enough where he can take some of the punishment. He's not a little scat back or anything like that. So he fits the NFL a little bit better with his running style. So I think he'll get a shot for sure.